Yo, welcome to the Urban Doxology Podcast, man, where we are doing something crazy and something amazing here, where we're talking about the love of the black church, being able to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. Man, it's been years in the making, man. It had so many different names, you know what I'm saying, so many different partners. But to see what God has finally brought it to today, man, I can finally say, I have something of my own.
Let's go.
That was some applause right now, bro. It'll be, I would be turning backflips right now, man. But I'm not going to get to all that, man. Let me introduce you guys to somebody who's a near dear friend of me. He's one of my good friends who I've grown up with, man, in church, man. He didn't see me as a youngin to right now. I'm bigger than him.
Yes, he was slim.
I'm bigger than him, but this is my older brother, man. This is one of my good friends. This is Christopher Gordon, man. Ain't with the applause right there, dog.
Bless you, baby. Bless you.
So, big dog, so I reached out to you, man, because I know you came from, great stock. You've been raised in the church, man.
Yeah.
You've been raised by some great ministers, I would think. So you can correct me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Some
So
good times, yeah.
definitely, man. So what I want to do, bro, I want to give the opportunity for you just to kind of, say your upbringing, how you got to where you are now. A lot of people don't know that you are a licensed minister.
Yeah.
You bought the right books or whatever. I'm just playing.
I went online.
Right. You're probably not there. But I want to, like tell the folks about yourself, bro.
Man, like you said, grew up in church. I've been in church since children's church since Sunday school.
Yeah.
But all my life, from youth choir, drill team, debate team, all of those things, summer camp, vacation Bible school, so I've been in church all my life, and I really got saved around 17, 18, and then from that I knew that the Lord was really pushing me toward this ministry life.
Yeah, man.
And so
what age would you say that you was called?
I would say I knew around my freshman year in college that when the Lord, that's when I knew I was saved.
Yeah.
To where it's I knew I had a personal relationship with Jesus for myself, not just for my mom, my family, my community. I wasn't just a cultural Christian no more.
Right.
To where if the Lord could tell me something in my individual life, I was going to follow him. Yeah. So that's when I knew that he was pushing me toward seminary ministry to just study his word deeper. And I knew that I did not want to be a lawyer anymore.
Oh, wow.
And he dried up all my zeal for debate, for policy, public speaking, all those things. It was all not, this is what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool, man, when you say it kind of sealed everything else and is putting your gifts into your ministry, because you actually use all those things in your ministry.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I remember a few Bible studies we didn't have, and after the Bible study, we going hard, you know what I mean? Just being able to talk, have a natural conversation about the troubles of what we see in the church and then the troubles that we have as a race. You know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely for it, man. If you guys have never heard this man preach, look at him. Telling you right now, no cap, man. This boy can go. He can go.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
you.
So, but the thing is, dog, what I want to kind of get into, man, over the course of time, again, the Urban Doxology Podcast, which is a long name to think about. It's a long name.
I like it, though. I like it.
It is fresh, though, bro.
It is.
It is
man.
fresh,
Keep
man.
that.
I'm trying to.
Yes.
I got to get it copyrighted
Make
and all
him
that.
look up what doxology means.
Trying to, hey.
Make him
bro,
do that.
Honestly, dude, I was going to sit here and kind of explain it, but I was like, you know what? You do your homework.
Look it up. Look it up. No. Don't be afraid to learn some black people.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Stretch up and grow and learn something.
And that's what this whole situation is about, man.
Yeah.
Is being able to appreciate where we come from as the institution of the black church,
Yeah.
but also say, okay, there are some things we didn't learn growing up within the black church. We kind of just grab, like you said earlier, culture, Christianity, some things that we just kind of just grab from my elders and
That's
from
true.
my parents, you know what I'm saying? And now that we adults now, it's like, okay, I have what I thought I knew what was Christianity as a kid, but bro, I'm missing out on something.
Yeah.
But what I can say, man, and we can get into this, dog, is that we have to talk about some of the myths of the black church.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a whole lot of things that's walking around today in our culture that they're really false.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
For one, man, is that Christianity came from white man's religion. You know what I'm saying? We gravitated from a whole different group of people. And, like now, I don't know how to, navigate it on my own, because I believe that since I heard somebody say that it was a white man's religion, I'm going to just go with that. And now I'm going to be like, okay, I'm lost now. So you want to kind of get into this a little, give them a little taste of that, dog.
A little taste. That argument that Christianity is the white man's religion is, I would say, resurging.
Yeah.
Because it started around, it started mainly around like 1960s when you saw the rise like Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
And they were saying, and their main argument was that black people who spoke to the plight of Jim Crow segregation and even our disenfranchisement as a people. The Muslims came along, the Nation of Islam came along and said, you all are serving the wrong religion.
Right.
Y'all serving this white man's religions. This blonde hair, blue eyed, but you are black, dark as the night, and you are still serving this white man. And it's this white religion that's keeping you down.
Yeah.
So a lot of black people just naturally gravitated to it because it spoke to our oppression. Yep. We were an oppressed people. And so that gave us a sense of identity. Yeah. And you see that argument coming along today in our black search for identity. Yeah. We are searching for our identity in America because whenever you see our oppression, like police brutality, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, and all these things, black people are now searching for identity because we are not fully American citizens, but we are black.
Facts.
So how do we kind of speak to our black identity? Yeah. And so one of the ways that they're doing it is a very false way to saying let's separate from this religion that we've been taught. Black people in America, 80% of black people in America still identify themselves as Christian.
Facts.
So that's where it usually starts there. They want to first, let's throw off this Christianity and let's find something of our own that speaks to our black identity. Yeah. But that's the first misnomer. That's the first mistake that we make to try to find our identity apart from the faith that we've held on to and the faith that held us for years.
Dude, centuries, bro.
Yeah.
When we even think about when we came over here and on the slave ships, dog, like we might have not known so much about. Now, it is said, bro, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was said that before we got on the transatlantic slavery ship, that Christians... Well, black people, Africans, already was practicing Christianity, some kind of Catholicism.
Absolutely.
Even some forms of Islam, like some forms of the nation. So it was like, Muslims, like it was some form of Muslim back then. So to kind of see that we already had different religions when we came over here, it's just like we've done that before. And then when we even go back to the Bible, when we go back to biblical form, black, we all up in there. Yeah, like we all up throughout the scriptures, man. So it's like to hear like you said, resurgent pseudo scholarship of what people are saying today. It is like, okay, guys, like let's stop, pump the brakes a little bit. For me, dog, to be honest, I believe that the reason why people attack Christians so much, especially black Christians, theoretically and ideally, is only because they know the main thing that we believe is turning of the cheek. Now, I mean, so it's like, I know the Christian ain't gonna do nothing to me.
Yeah.
They're not gonna go to no Muslim. They're not finna go. They're not finna go nowhere else.
They ain't finna go to them Nation of Islam guys in them suits.
Nah, they not finna. Nah, bro, because they gonna break you down.
Right.
With force.
Right.
And I think Eric Mason said this, dog, and I agree totally with him, man. One of the biggest disadvantages that we had as a people is the white Jesus. Like just the form, like the image of it. It has done so much damage.
I agree.
So much damage. So when you encounter other people and they says, you believe in this white man and you just like, no, I actually don't. And I'm like, why would you get that? Well, first Jesus is white and then there was no J's. Wait a minute, time out. What are we doing? What are we doing? And
I love those arguments. Because it's so easy to dismantle them.
Yeah.
Because even if you have a college, even if you just have a bachelor's degree and took a basic religious studies class, then you can dismantle those easy arguments.
Facts.
Those things confound the most basic of Christians who do not study and who are not even trying to learn. When you look at, I can give you some historical facts.
Yeah.
It is a historical fact that the gospel, that first century Jesus message once he died and his disciples, the message went to Africa way before it ever went to white people.
Yes, sir.
That's a historical fact.
Sir. Yes,
and so
sir.
we know that the gospel, there were black Christians before there were ever white Christians.
Yes, sir.
So
Facts.
that's a historical fact. And I'll challenge anybody on that.
Yeah.
Another historical fact. We have actual historical, you don't even have to be a Christian to believe this, but as a historian, there are historical groups in Ethiopia that existed that showed that that's one of the oldest churches, even the oldest Jewish churches was in Ethiopia.
Yep.
And rumor has it that that's where they have the Ark of the Covenant.
I hear that too.
That's a rumor,
It's
but
this the only nation that's not colonized either.
right.
But
historical fact is that there were Christians and even Jews in Ethiopia, so they did know about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in Ethiopia. We have historical fact of groups of Christians in Congo. The Catholic tribe had established a Congolese tribe of groups of Catholics way before slavery was even thought of. So you had people from the Congo area, Africa, who were Christians and Catholic. And then other than that, also that in North Africa had a huge group of Christians. So a lot of our church fathers, some of the most famous, Augustine, North Africa.
And they got him white, bro. If you look him up on Google.
False. Right.
On Google, it's a white man. I'm like, wait a minute. Now, look, we love all people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, if you are of another descent, we not in here bashing no other race.
Not at all.
But we must be true to what history says.
Yeah.
And like you about to get into.
Yeah.
When you pull up Augustine, they got that boy white as your shirt, dog.
Bruh, but that's a shoot. If they'll turn Jesus white, they'll turn anybody white.
Definitely.
So, but I mean, and even I'll give you another historical fact. There were Egyptian Christians.
Yeah.
The Coptic Christians who are still in Egypt to this day.
Facts.
And so, and when you have a Jesus who not only he wasn't white, but he also went over to Egypt and blended in. Yeah. So
exactly.
In Egypt, we can dispute this, but Egypt was for a huge identity was kind of merged with Africa for a bit. For a lot of Egypt historically, most people kind of identified Egypt as connecting to Africa. So when they say when Jesus went over to Egypt, some people was like, well, he must have had darker skin than this blonde hair, blue eyed thing. So those are all historical facts. We haven't even gotten to the theology of worship and having faith in God. And
I think we can kind of get that. That's a nice segue there, bro, is because when we take all these historical facts, we ain't really just get into the deep end of it. We're just giving you surface. Yeah. But it's just like if we go into why all that matters, because when we talk about being made in the image of God, Genesis 1:26-28, we talk about the image, us being image bearers, it makes sense. Yeah. Because now we have a reason to use what we call theology to know what God is about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you made in his image, what God is, and now that prompts up the doxology. Yeah. Boom, there it is. Like, they ain't see it coming.
Bring it full circle.
Exactly. So when you understand that you have a great knowledge of theology, your doxology is pumped it up. So now you know what you're praising. If you don't know what you're praising, then you're in trouble. Now you just out here just making noise. And I think that's one of the things that's, as being a part of the black church, even as a child, I didn't know what I was praising. I didn't know why I was praising. I didn't know what to do with the praise. Like, it was more or less of, you see a bunch of people getting happy, getting slain out in the spirit, you know what I'm saying, getting prayed upon, you seeing miracles. You don't know what a miracle is. Yeah. So as you grow, you seeing different forms of the black church. Now we can go, I want to do a different episode on denominations and how all that works. Okay. But it's just one of those things where, like, when we talk about the Baptists, talk about the Pentecostals, talk about the AME, we talk about all these, the Methodists, we talk about all these different forms of denomination. They all function different, and they all hold different theologies that they kind of grew up on, and that's been passed down from generation to generation. Can you speak to the reason why we may have different views, before I say that, there's only one clear view of who God is, There's only one clear view of the Trinity and how that works. But when we think about it, all different denominations hold different forms of how they feel about theology, about who God is, and they all don't have the same theology as far as the Trinity is concerned.
Right.
Like they all have different views of who Jesus is. I heard a bunch of people say Jesus is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I heard people say that Jesus is all, and God is just some outside force that's just like, you know what I'm saying? He just orchestrating it, but Jesus is the one that we should just praise, honor. He's the Father. And when you kind of challenge that view, you frown upon. Now you're a heretic. You know what I'm saying? So again, if the theology is off, everything follows is going to be off too.
True.
So can you kind of speak to why does it matter to have sound doctrine when we're trying to live rightly as Christians, as Black Christians in this country?
Well, that's huge important, especially when it comes to area of Black church. Because like growing up, like one of the knocks against Black churches were that it was all emotion and no content.
Yeah.
And so like even not just Black churches, but even the Black preacher,
Yeah.
you know, that like these preachers grew up and trained to like proud on your emotions, but actually have no type of biblical content. So they were known as like they could prick your emotions, but they can't do nothing for your mental and can't get your mind.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I think when I kind of gravitated to church, it was almost like a new revelation because like once I got saved, I was like, you mean to tell me there is like actual historical information? Yeah. Like there's books and there's mental knowledge. Yeah. Like there are things that can actually like influence your mind.
Facts.
where you can really say like, I'm not just believing this because I got the Holy Ghost, so I just want to shout, but I actually can articulate and it makes sense that I can be smart, that I can be intelligent, that it made intelligent sense for you to love God, to know God, and to study God. And what's so crazy is most of humanity for years, if you were an intellectual, most of the time, for most of human history, if you were an intellectual, especially in America, you were a Christian. Yeah. So all the intellectuals in America, like we're a part of this new age where atheists, where we've kind of separated faith from intelligence and faith from science, but they often ran hand in hand. So when it comes to the subject of like why it's important to have a good doxology, to know what we're studying, things really kind of unfolded in a way where you can say that as the church began to grow and as the church began to spread, like different groups had took the gospel and ran with it. Yeah. So you had some groups who were saying like Peter was the true head of the church, and other people spreading the gospel to like Africa and Asia, Asia Minor, and Rome and Christians, and you see that even in Acts. So people having different beliefs and all that stuff like that. But and even when early church history, Council of Nicaea, that's not what you think it is. Don't believe in the books, the movies, that stuff to sell novels. But you still see like different churches, different groups. And Paul spends a lot of his time addressing those differences. Definitely. So it's always been good. That's part of Paul's ministry. Paul was trying to get all of us centralized on the right things, because you can see these different groups, these Gnostic Christianities that kept popping up, that where they start twisting the things of God. But that's why it's important to know what you believe, because that's what makes Paul so amazing, is that he was not one of the 12 disciples, but God saved a person who was supremely an intellectual and said, you are going to be the person that carries this faith. Yes, sir. Paul's writing of Romans, he's not just writing just to flex how smart he is, but he is super smart. Very. One of the supreme intellectuals. Matter of fact, the person who against him, when he was arguing in front of Herod in Acts, he says, Paul, your intelligence has made you mad. Yeah. He knows Paul is an intellectual. And people in Acts 17, when he's talking to the philosophers, they can tell he's an intellectual. So God used an intellectual person, a person who could understand logic, philosophies, and how to arrange arguments and Socratic methods. He took that person and said, you're going to be the person that spreads the gospel all across the world. You need to be an intellectual if you're going to understand this faith, because not only does it apply to your head, it applies also to your heart as well.
And it really doesn't matter how you get to that space. I know we live in a technology world, so you are able to get scriptures through your apps. You're able to, YouTube. They have so many how to do things. There's so much that you can access now that even our grandparents would be kind of envious of right now. Now, one thing I can say, even though today, I agree that we are able to, I'm playing devil's advocate by the way.
Go ahead.
So even though we are
able, come on, I love argument.
We are able to have, even though we are able to have, we have the ability to be intellectuals. Our faith doesn't really cause us to be intellectuals, right? Mm-hmm. It just causes us to believe. Yeah. So if I know that my grandparents, which I just mentioned, but my grandparents grew up in a time where they didn't have nothing but each other as a community, and that community they built each other on faith. They was always around each other. They did things for each other. For them, I don't need to know the five solas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't have to know John Calvin's theory or the Reformation. I don't have to know any of these things. I just need to know that God brought me out of a situation, and He's gonna keep bringing me through. So for a lot of people, they'll come back and say, Chris, you know what? I don't have a desire to sit there and be intellectual when it comes to the faith. What would you say to a person like that would respond that way? That
they don't have the desire to be intellectuals?
Yeah.
If that's what your faith consists of, it'll sustain you. Like,
good.
Here's the thing. With me, I was grasping for something more.
Okay.
Because I saw that, folks shouted and folks spoke in tongues and folk would fall out and all this stuff in the church. And it was a joke to me.
Yeah.
I thought that was like, man, I would never be one of those clowns up there who like raising your voice and sweating and like I was like, I'll never be that person.
Right.
And I thought these folk had lost their mind because I was like, I'm way too smart for this.
Yeah.
I'm way too analytical for this.
Yeah.
To be one of these clowns up there just losing their mind and just falling out emotionally. I thought I was way too much an intellectual for that. But what's so crazy is I was looking for something more, and not everybody was looking for something more. I mean, but so when I was craving something more, it was almost like a eureka moment that it actually is there. Like there's enough of historical data and intellectual data for you to study this Christian faith for a lifetime. Yeah. But should you not want to? You don't have to study Thomas Aquinas. You don't have to study the early Reformation period or the early church fathers or Origen.
Right.
You can still, God can there's enough God for your intellect, but then also there's enough of God for your heart too. To know what our grandmothers knew. He's a bridge over troubled water.
Come on, bro.
He's bread when you're hungry.
Yes,
He's
sir.
water when you're thirsty.
Yes, sir.
I discovered Him with my mind. And then that in turn changed my heart to know that, He's a heart fixer and a mind regulator.
Exactly.
That stuff like that.
That's good,
that's what our grandmothers believed,
yes,
and they counted on, that He's a banker when you need Him. He's a lawyer. He's a doctor. They never lost a patient. You don't learn that stuff in books. You learn that stuff through experience and walking with God. You can walk with God and still find Him there. But if you have that intellectual mind like I was searching for, you can also find Him there as well.
Man, that's good, man. And I think, I was always taught too in Bible school that you don't want to be a smart sinner. Nobody wants to be a smart sinner. Like literally, you don't want to know all these different things and then you still sinning, but you can walk your way out your own sin. Nobody wants to do that. Like, and it seems to me, is that like as a sinful, saved by grace believer, that sometimes we can always find our way out of our own mess by justifying a lot by what we do because of a scripture that we may know or something like that. And again, man, I think that's also the reason why what I see in the black church, dog, is that a lot of young people, millennials especially, and they may go right back to the baby boomers and so forth. A lot of people have something against the black church because they called it hypocritical. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I left because they full of hypocrites. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So for me, when I hear people say that, Generally, I really don't have a response because in the moment I was like, well, yeah. yeah, you can say that, bro. But then I'm reminded that if the church is supposed to be seen for a hospital, everybody in there is still sickly.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, everybody's still infected by some kind of virus that we're still dealing with, which is the sin sick soul. So just because you get saved, and the people get this confused too, and I heard a few guys talk about this on YouTube before. I don't want to name drop, but once I get his name, I'm gonna name drop him. Mm-hmm. This one guy was on YouTube talking about how, you know, once you become saved, you become a Christian, you immediately just stop doing all the stuff that you was doing before you became a Christian. So what my problem with that is,
I don't know about that.
My problem with that is that yes, you confessed, yes, you became a Christian, yes, you believe in Jesus. But now there's a process, sanctification that you have to go through.
Sanctification, that's the word.
Bro, and the thing is, you can look like Jesus for 2 months, and then you'll go 6 months looking like straight trash.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you could probably say you could do it intentionally, but I'm not excusing sin. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, grace is cover us all. I mean, Romans 8:1 would be, 6:1 would tell you, no, by no means. Mm-hmm. By no means. So, but what I'm saying is, sanctification is a lifelong situation where you are being processed through all the things that you used to doing.
Right.
However, there are things that are called for mortification. I think I'm saying that right. Where you have to mortify that sin.
Yeah.
Some things you can just be like, all right, you know,
I ain't doing that no more.
Yeah. But there's other hidden things that in your character and in your being that has to be processed through. And that's the thing that we don't talk about in the black church is what does it look like to be sanctified daily? You know, like, because once you come down the altar and once you give your life to Christ, normally what happens is that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like now,
right.
Yeah, like now is about, okay, you know, the next day you may get a call from a deacon. You may get a call, you know, how you doing? How can I pray for your sister? And then once the prayer's over with, boom, that's it. And then they may throw at you. You may want to start coming to Bible study. But when you get the Bible study, it's just the same thing as you got on Sunday.
Right.
You know? So one thing I think that we can tighten up on, this is my opinion, is being able to not only allow the person to give their life to Christ, but these next steps that say, okay, this is what happens now. That this is what needs to happen for you to start gaining spiritual maturity. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And then I know that may take some time, and that may be, you know, that may prolong the process, because I know one thing we are about numbers. You know, you want to tell your church, your other church friend, your church, and that's a pastor, that you have 5,000 to join that Sunday. You know, like, so I know the numbers.
That's how we do. That's how preachers do that. They do.
I do know that game. But if we really in this thing about souls, if we really in this thing about helping that person, it should be more or less about how can I be available to give to allow this person to trust me, you know, because I think sometimes, man, look here, man, I can speak from experience when I joined the community of faith, and I remember after I got saved when I was 8. I don't think I knew why I was getting saved. I just remember. I can tell you this right now. I remember as a child, 8 years old, I was probably doing something I had no business doing. Yeah. And then I got caught. Probably was crying. And then Mom was like, "Man, take your butt down there to the altar." And I came down there. Then boom.
Just like that.
It's like that.
Yeah.
You know. But after that moment, even though I didn't know for sure what I was doing. Mm-hmm. After I accepted Christ and after I, you know, did the confession of faith and all that. That was it. Now I'm in there. I'm going to heaven now. Yeah. But in between from 8 to 24, I was still doing what I want, but there was like no guidance. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I'm not knocking my family, my parents.
No.
You know, they do the best they can.
They did.
But it was just something about being able to navigate what to do, how to live as a young believer, how do I navigate in this world as a young believer. So when I look at teens today, and shout out to Tyrone Smith, man. That's my guy. Ty is my guy, man.
You pastor.
Yeah, man.
You minister.
He remembered when I was 14 years old. So to see him do how he's doing ministry today in the church, at the Church Without Walls, and to see him actually giving a care, bro, like actually caring about these teen souls. For me, seeing that, I'm like, bro, like that's a real game changer to me.
Yeah.
You know, because now that I'm in the church, now I have to leave about this church now. I can't live here. So after I accept Christ, I got to go right back into the world.
Yeah.
Go right back into the world and get right back around those same things that I've been struggling with. Like, you don't know what I don't know what I'm going to encounter on a daily basis. So I think a lot of times when we talk about, you know, why millennials or why people are leaving the church, one is his hypocritical. They hate hypocrites apparently. And then two, it's just like, okay, now that I didn't shout it and I didn't gave all this praise and you didn't promise all these breakthroughs, I got to go back to this job.
Right.
That I have no desire to be at. I'm finna go be around these people. I have no desire to be around. I got to deal with my family who I have no desire to be with. You know what I'm saying? So like the list goes on and on. So I believe that, dude, there has to be, well, for one, it goes two ways. For one, it has to be a desire for both things. It has to be a desire for the person to desire to get discipled, who they have to have a desire to want to learn spiritual maturity, but also the church has to be available and to offer these things. Maybe that's something you could tell me that I don't know. Because I think you didn't been on Deacon Boys before. Well,
I've been a lot of places, platforms and stuff like that.
Right. So you work within the black church. So like, how does that? Give us insight on that, dog. Like, how does that actually work once a person comes and get a life to Christ, and how does that work from your viewpoint?
Okay. When you said a lot, I'm gonna try to unpack it.
Go ahead. We got some time.
I'll start with the most recent. When someone comes and gives their life to the Lord, like I've had to do that. I've preached, and a person who came and gave their life to Christ, I've led them in salvation, and then I've kind of followed up with them and basically trying to that first initial step from them being in the pews to them coming down the aisle making a decision to follow Jesus. That is a process. And when I tell you, like one time I was sharing with a guy and he had just joined church, and I said, we want to pray you a prayer of salvation. And I was just talking to him and I'm using this term salvation. And then he was like, excuse me, man, what's salvation? And I was like, like, you got to understand, man, it's a process. Yeah. People are not just growing up with these church words and vernaculars and all that stuff like that. Sometimes they just know, I just want to give God my heart. Yeah. And that's as simple as they can put it. So you really have to be gracious with new believers. You have to be gracious with them. You start off with kind of giving them like a new members class or some sort of orientation to kind of orient them toward the church after they've made that decision behind the scenes on that day. Then you try to like slowly build them up, slowly get them to like knowing what it means to be a Christian, knowing what it is to who Jesus is, who God is, how does all the basics, how does church, how do I go back into the world? Yeah. How do I go into my family? Knowing these basic tenets of the Christian faith, that's where I usually start as far as like to build and equip new believers. But okay, now is there some hiccups? Of course, definitely. Like I saw this meme the other day where they was talking about when a youth person who just gave their life to Christ get a testimony and they start using swear words accidentally. And those things happen because people who have been in the world for forever and they so used to talking like this. So when they get behind the mic at church, sometimes it'll slip. They just pouring from the heart. So, but we are easily gracious with those people. We are gracious because they're new believers. And one thing that I have to say this, at what point do we stop being gracious? Because at the same time, one of the biggest knocks against the church is that, like you said, those are hypocrites there. Those are hypocrites. And I'm going to say this. I'm a hypocrite. I am. Because I'm a person, I've been in seminary, I've been in ministry, so I know better. But I don't always do better. Facts. See, man. Like I know all the different sins. But that don't stop me from doing them. Man. And see, like I have more knowledge than I have, I guess you can say, obedience. So like, and it's like, well, how are you somebody that teaches this stuff, that reads the scripture and all that stuff like that, but still doing it? I'm gonna say this, for my hypocrisy, it don't make it any easier. So I like, but here's the crazy part about it is, calling me a hypocrite or church people a hypocrite don't make you any better. It's just like we're getting called, church people mainly are getting called hypocrites by people who have basically said, I'm going to live how I want to live. And I'm not going to be held to any standard. So you can't hold me to any standard, but you being a Christian, I can hold you to these standards. You're supposed to turn the other cheek if I hit you. You're supposed to take it if I curse at you, and you can't say nothing. You're just supposed to be nice to me, and I'm supposed to be able to use you and abuse you, and you can't do anything because you're a Christian. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Man.
That the folk who live by no standard can accuse those who trying to live by this standard. And that's one of the things that I'm really saying is, okay, is there some hypocrisy? Yes. Because at the end of the day, when we want to do right, the best of us, Paul said, when I would do right, evil is still there. The wrong that I would not do, that I end up doing.
Yes, sir.
And he was an evangelist caught up in the third heaven, wrote half the New Testament. But even he was one of the best of us, and he still struggled with doing wrong. And man, we got to be more gracious with us. Like, and I give you an example. I give you a worldly example, a recent one. That whole like Kurt Franklin thing. You know, like when so many people was like, cancel him, get rid of him. He's supposed to be this, and I'm just saying this. I don't have a son, but if my 33-year-old son,
33, bro,
talk to me like that, that's a grown man. I would probably have some choice language, just like Mr. Franklin. Like man, we would have been like, oh really? we would have had to see about it. Like you know what I'm saying? Because you a grown man talk. We don't allow folk at a certain point to have grace. We allow new believers to slip and get it right. But I think at some point we think that when you've been in church for a while, you should just be able to get it right. But sanctification, like you said, is a process, man. It's a long one. It's ongoing, man. I hope I'm getting better than what I used to be. Facts. And I'm hoping that as a Christian brother, you'll step in, you'll convict me of things. But like I said, I know more than I do. So and
I agree, man. I think the more you know, the more you would struggle. And I think that's something that we all have to be, like you said, be graceful with each other. But I think it's harder for people who come from different backgrounds and say, you know what, I'd rather not deal with it all. Man, I was talking to my mother, man. Shout out to moms. I was talking to my moms, man, yesterday. It was yesterday. And we talked about how just random people you don't even know can just literally come up to you and y'all can have a casual conversation, and then they'll throw something at you about somebody that you are being shepherded by. And they can be like, they can point out all that man's sins. Like, just throw rocks at this glass house, just throwing all these rocks. But then when you look into their own backyard, it's pretty junky back there. You know what I'm saying? So I think I agree, man, is that we should be able to understand that it's okay to hold people accountable. So we're not saying not to hold somebody accountable for the position that they held, but not put too much emphasis on the fact that if they do slip and fall, they can get right back up, just like how you done got back up plenty of different times. But with that being said, though, man, how do you feel about, and I'm doing like a sweep of what the podcast is going to be about initially. There's just different topics. I'm coming at you at a rapid pace.
Let's go.
So how do you feel about leaders in the church who do slip and fall, and they do have a nice following, but once the news get out and it's a broken, it's like Sports Center, man. Like it's a breaking news fact, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it hits the airwaves. You know what I'm saying? It hits. Man,
they love to see these guys fall. The bigger the church, my goodness, bro. So the bigger the headline.
So what do you believe should happen, in your opinion, to church leaders who do fall publicly, and yet they have a desire? They always gonna have a desire to preach, but do you think there should be a time for them to be like, I need to just rest off, or should they still go full throttle? What you think about that?
Especially when it reaches headlines. Headlines level, like breaking news on Channel 13 tonight. Mega pastor falls and did this, got caught, busted. You gotta take some time to really heal, to separate yourselves, to get back on track. Because one of the things that I know this being a minister, being behind the scenes a lot. Before the news ever broke any major scandal, any story, it's people around them that already knew it for years. And so the news didn't break anything that either your wife didn't know, that the people who serve at the church which you didn't know, and maybe a good sense of the congregation already knew. So like they're not just revealing breaking secrets. It's new to us outsiders.
Right.
But those who you share a bed with, share a home with, share your church community with, share fellowship with, they had some kind of idea of who you were.
Yeah.
So I think once it reaches that level, I think those things show that when you operate, it's okay to fall. Yeah. But most of the time when it gets breaking news, that's not your first fall. Yeah. I think you see a lot of those people who made it a habit of like going after sin, of living in sin, of just kind of wallowing in it. And then I think once it reaches that breaking news area, I think that's when it's time for you to you need to take some time away, separate from the ministry, because your work is impacting the ministry.
Definitely.
And I don't ever want to get to a point, because this is the part that scares me. Well, for years I was afraid to call myself a preacher, minister, or anything like that.
Man, yeah.
Because I didn't want to fail God.
Yeah, bro.
And I ain't want folk to be like, see, he's supposed to be this, but look what he did, and all this stuff. That stuff haunted me. Mm-hmm. And I was so afraid to being held to that standard and breaking it, that I'm just like, man, I did not want to be in any type of church leadership and all that stuff and that stuff haunted me for years. Yeah. While I was learning this stuff, I was even preaching, but I would not call myself a minister or a preacher because I didn't want somebody to be like, see, look at you, hypocrite. Look what you did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Bro, I got licensed. I got licensed in July 2016. I think it was 2016. And I remember just telling everybody, don't call me no man of God. That's not me. Yeah. Because I still was like under the same thing. Like, look here, man. Like, I'm going to just be who I am. Yeah. I'm going to let the gospel bleed through my veins. Yeah. You're going to see Jesus in what I do. Yeah. I don't want to be labeled as something. No. So if I do mess up, he won't come at me like, D, what you? I'm like, bro, what you mean? So like, I didn't want that kind of pressure placed upon me.
Right, it is.
And because it comes with a lot of weight. It comes like, even if you if you mess up privately, and the people that you do confide in and the people that you do talk to, they still hold you to a standard, and they're going to hold you to it. There's an expectation to put upon your life because you profess to be a minister, you profess to be a leader, and you probably have preached to a bunch of people under their watch. Mm-hmm. So if you do mess up, for me, I just like, okay, I did make a misstep. But now these people who have this label upon you, now they can be like, all right, see, now I can't deal with church folks. I can't deal with ministers. Yeah. And that has been going on forever.
Yes.
And so when we think about the black church and how, how we have been constructed throughout the years, for one, let me say that the black church, man, is the epicenter of black people. It's one of those things where we go and we get hope from. It's been our hope factor since
we landed on Plymouth Rock.
Bruh, it's been here forever.
Yeah.
It's been here forever. So there's going to be some craziness that happens within because we people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So within the nature of us being human, we are going to do some things that are crazy. We're going to get corrected. We're going to get even bullied sometimes. Yeah. But I would never throw away the institution of the black church, bro, because it has done so much great things. It has also birthed out some great universities, some great hospitals. Bro, it has done so much good. You can't just throw it all away.
But what you're speaking to is why I don't see our generation achieving and having any type of progress. Is because when we throw away the black church, we take 5 steps back. Yeah. Because like when you look at the 60s, if you throw away the black church, let's see what you're getting rid of. You're getting rid of the civil rights movement. Yeah. There's no civil rights movement without the black church. Yeah. You're getting rid of every historically black college and university in America. You are getting rid of that. These places were started because black churches said we need to, not only since we established our churches, we need to now establish our universities. Yep. We need to establish, I get it. We have our flaws. And I'm one of those, we have to acknowledge those. Yeah. I'm never going to sweep under the rug the flaws of the black church, even though I'm a part of it. I'm not going to sweep under the rug the flaws. I'm still a millennial. We're part of that millennial group.
Yeah.
We can see the flaws,
Yeah.
but you cannot throw it away. Like, man, I'm reading a book right now, and it's called The History of the Negro Church by Carter G. Woodson.
Okay.
And when he talks about the first installment of the black church was in America was in the 1700s.
Yeah.
That's back before America even succeeded from Britain, from English rule. Yeah. So you still had the black church here as one of the key things before America was even America.
Yes, sir.
So, man, like, you cannot throw it away. To throw away the black church, you're throwing away American history.
Yes, sir.
I can't bleed this enough. That's like you said, it was our community. You don't get the civil rights movement without the black church, because people never gathered together. You couldn't unite them. Martin Luther King was not some motivational speaker. That man was a preacher, raised in a black church to be a preacher and a pastor. Go to Ebenezer, go to Dexter Avenue Church. You cannot get the civil rights movement without Martin Luther King. Most of the places that they organized and set up shop at were churches. They would walk into these churches, grab deacons, and they wore suits because they were churches. Those are not your dress clothes. Those are church clothes. Yes, before we had dress clothes, we had church clothes. Yes, and that's where we put on our first suit. That's what taught us how to tie a tie. That's where our people first were able to walk with our heads held high, was in church. That's why I learned how to be a public speaker. That's why I learned how women and families were supposed to operate and love each other was from church. That was our first intellectuals.
Yes, sir.
First people who could read and write were at our churches. We cannot throw that away.
Not at all. And I think, bro, you hit on. I remember when we moved churches from when I was a young, but since I was a baby. I can't talk. I don't know why I can't talk right now. But I remember as a baby, we moved from churches and we got to the Church Without Walls. And the first intellectual preacher that I encountered was, of course,
man. What? Talk about himself. It. Talk about it.
Ralph Douglas.
Boy,
the man, the guy.
Yeah, he boy.
You talking about clean, suited, booted, and then he can give you all, bro. He gave you theology, dude. You didn't even know you was even getting it,
bruh.
So I don't care what nobody says about that man.
Freight train.
That man put it. He put it there for black people, dude.
He brought a freight train threw it at us every Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Just brought a whole train and just shoved it and hit us with it.
Yes, sir.
He meant so much to both of us. Yep. And I mean, like, he was our first black intellectual that I really been exposed to, because that man, like, where during a time where preachers were still kind of ABCD and having like a middle school education and some high school, where you were not required to have a college degree to be a preacher. Yeah. Preaching was still relatively an uneducated field. Right. He was one of those who had a bachelor's, had a master's degree, and later a doctoral degree, who showed you that, listen, you can be intellectual and still believe this. He would mess up your mind, but then he would shout you at the end and have you get it. I can shout. Let me tell you why my voice is raising. Let me tell you why I believe this, man. Yeah.
And the thing, he had swag doing it,
bro. And dressed up in a suit and all that stuff like that. But let me also bring a sociological argument. Yeah. For us who are, the black community is majority of matriarchy. And I want to say about 76% of all babies are born to unwed mothers. Right. So we are mainly a single parent. No community has the numbers of single parentness and even just mom-led. We have an absence of father figure issue in our community. The black church is one of those where men would play, like, for a sociological argument, that's where I was able to see men in charge, men doing stuff positive, men dressing up in suits, men not at the corner, not huddled around a barrel, not with the brown bag and sipping. These were men who were dressed up, who were businessmen, who wore suits, who walked with dignity, who treated people well, and they were fly. They had swag. Yeah. That's where I saw some upstanding men of our community were a part of the church.
Yes, sir.
That did stuff for me even as a child. We gotta keep that going.
We do. Yeah. We do, and we do have up and coming men that are keeping the fire burning.
Yeah.
You know, it's rare.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It
It's
is
rare. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't heard some stuff and I didn't kind of seen some things. I'm like, all right, that's what you're doing. All right, God bless you. That's good. But I think that you hit it on the nail, man. I think when we grew up and really just saw a guy who can just throw the freight train at us, man, give us sound doctrine and gave us what we needed. That's what the hope was, man. Is getting a bunch of people gathered up, flood bingo.
Yeah.
Had that thing wrapped around the building to hear this one man preach, and he gave it to us. Bro, I remember as a kid being my mom and my dad sung in the choir. We was there all day.
Yeah.
7 o'clock to like 2 o'clock. They
service.
did all through
Next
service.
service.
Yeah.
All service.
All services, dog. I mean, as a kid, you just like, you don't really mind. We in church ministry. They had one of the best church kids ministries, man. So we was there all day. But it wasn't until I got into college. When I got in college and I really understood what he was doing, I was like, bro.
I appreciate him all over again.
Yes, sir.
Like even in his preaching ministry. Now, I don't really speak to him. I speak to him, but I'm saying I don't have that close bond or close relationship, things like that. So I'm really speaking just as a fan.
Right.
But I appreciate him more now, I guess, than I did then. Yeah. Because I thought it was just, this guy is good. I didn't realize that he was like a worldwide, national preacher, and I didn't know that he was like far cutting above every other preacher. That, like, I just thought I liked him. Yeah. But man, he probably would be like I don't give preachers A+. I think it's some A's, but for that period that I was at Church Without Walls and I was able to sit and listen to him, I would say from about 93 to about 2006, he was A+. That man was killing everything in sight. But but to get to what we were talking about, man, he was able to blend your intellect and your heart, and that's rare, man. We need preachers. I aspire to be that. To
bro,
be a
and you
like
do
that.
one hell of a job.
I'm trying, man.
Doing what, bro? It's only certain people that can move you, and you one of those brothers, man. You one of those guys that can get up there and just give it your all, and you stay true to the text. You ain't over in Africa. You ain't over here in Europe. Like, you are in the text. Like, you stick to the gun, and we need people like that, man. And no knock to nobody that's doing it who's still struggling through it, because I know it takes time to get good at this.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because you, first of all, when you come into it, you trying to figure out where you are with it, who you finna mimic, who you finna steal. Like, I didn't heard some preachers steal some stuff, like, for
Dog, I hate that.
Yeah, I didn't see some stuff, bro. So I'm like,
it's a copycat profession, right? Because anytime a preacher does something well, everybody wants to come and copycat him,
bro.
And I hate that. But I'm glad. I don't want to make this quick. I'm glad we're having this discussion about black preaching, even black church, because here's the temptation. Most of our groups, whenever you come off to college, you leave the black church. Definitely. And you don't come back. Yeah. Either you don't go to any, most, they say about what, like 80 some, I want to say Pew Research did about 80% of people lose their faith when they go to college. Yeah, man. So they either abandon faith altogether, or here's something that I see even in Houston. They grew up at the black church, and the black church gave them a scholarship to go to college. But when they get out of college, they got involved with some more ecumenical, diverse Christian ministry. And so they never come back to the black church. They end up joining some mixed church or diverse church, or it's white-led church, but all these other cultures and multicultural stuff. But we just turn our backs on the black church because when we get a piece of paper and a degree and all that stuff like that, and I hate that. I hate it, because I'm like, man, there's something, it's a treasure there. Like those memories that you and I were just like, man, this next generation needs that treasure. That, man, that's part of who we are as black people. We can't separate our black African-American heritage from our black Christianity. Facts. We cannot. Yeah. Because that's just ingrained to who we are.
And I think that, man, to even on the back end as we wrap it up, I think that there should be a continuous, there should be an infatuation of love for the black church, man.
Yes.
We need it, man. We need it more than ever, especially right now. Not because of what's going on racially in this country, but the black church has been where we got our music from.
Yeah.
It's been where we get our dances from. It's been where we get our intellectual ideas, where we get how we can serve the community. It has been so evident that the black church has produced great people, bro. Some of the best entertainers of our time.
Aretha.
Bro, come on,
Whitney.
man. Bro,
Shoot.
bro, I just watched the Mahalia Jackson.
Mahalia.
Bro.
Shoot. All of that stuff.
Man, it comes from the black church, man.
Church.
So we have to keep that going, man. So, bro, I'm going to say my spiel, and you
Go
can
ahead.
end it, man. I encourage any young or any elder who has fallen away from the black church because of some kind of discrepancy, some kind of mishap. Man, look here. There's more than one black church, especially in Houston. I'm repping Houston right now. Like, it's more than one black church.
We're a church city.
We're a church city. There's more than one. It don't have to be mega. It ain't got to be small. Whatever your preference is, there is something out there just for you. God has something just for you to go give yourself to. Not just go in there and just sit in the pew. No. Get involved, man. Get your hands dirty, because you will find more joy by actually having your hands involved in the black church other than receiving from the black church.
Yeah.
So I think that even when we talk about the college students, when we talk about them leaving and going, because I was the same way. Once I left, I would enjoy me a multicultural church, man. Mm-hmm. And then when things like what's going on today, the racial aspect of it, it's never been said.
Yeah.
They'll never talk about it. We talk about Dr. King and his theology. People talk about his theology all the time. We got to understand something, though. Dr. King went to seminary and got his theology because why? They didn't let him into the white seminary schools.
Ding, ding, ding.
So it's like we have to. If you're gonna speak on things that you don't know nothing about, let's take some time back and let's just be like, okay, why is this happening? Why even there is a black church?
Yeah,
because they ain't want us in their churches. So
I'm reading about that too,
bro. Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, they walked out the church because they told them, go over there and sit with the niggas. They said that.
Yeah. So
they actually got their stuff. Boom. Now they got the AME church.
Yeah.
That's how that's birthed out. So the black church has done so much, man. We had contributed to all different aspects of life. We have our flaws, like you said, big bro, but we are still here, man. What you want to say to that,
man?
Dog?
Man, I'm reading a thing called the Moynihan Report, and it was the report that was published by the Department of Labor and Statistics, Daniel Moynihan, in the 1960s, and he talks about the state of the Negro in America, and a lot of the statistics are bad back then, but they've grown from bad to worse. Like he was talking about single parent births, illegitimate, from around 23.6%. He said the black family has an illegitimate unmarried birth rate of 23.6%.
Wow.
Now it's up to like 76%. But one of the things that he talks about as the cause for all these bad negative statistics were the erosion and the breakdown of the black family. And so one of the things that I often, this is my own theory, is that when the black church started to fail, that started the erosion of the black family.
Wow.
And when the black family was showcased more at the black church. That's where you saw man, woman, boy, girl, where father and family and kids could all sit on a pew together. Yeah. That was a family thing. Church used to be for families, man. And so when church started to kind of dissipate, and I believe that when the church becomes the pillar of the community again, and that's where the solution for families, that's where black men, because we got issues between black women now. Yeah. If we come together in church and we start treat each other like brother and sister and respect each other again, then we can come together and marry our black sisters. Black men marry our black sisters. Yeah. We can do that in church. We can produce families in church, lead our children to church, and bring our family back. If you fix the family in church, that's where you fix the community.
I agree. That's good. That's good. So, guys, this is the Urban Doxology Podcast. I want to thank my brother for coming.
Yes,
for
sir.
being here with us, man. Look, more to come. We're going to have more guests. We're going to bring my brother back. We're going to have a bunch of people in here probably one time. But this is the podcast, man. This is your boy DeMarcus, man. I love y'all. Peace. See y'all soon. Boom.